Hello and welcome to SRIRAM's IAS. In this series, we are in the continuation of Indian economy by SRIRAM sir himself. This book is being covered chapter by chapter, and currently we are doing the fourth chapter of this book, that is the planning and planned development of India. Particularly, we are covering the 5-year plans. In this video or in this lecture series, we have already covered why and what is the need of planning, who does the planning. In the second video, we discussed from first to fourth 5-year plan. In today's video, we will be starting with the fourth 5-year plan again. Before we start fourth 5-year plan, I just want to highlight that these are the contact details in which you can connect to SRIRAM's IAS Hyderabad or myself if you have any doubts regarding any of the topics which we discuss, any of the things which we discuss, or if you have doubts regarding your own preparation for your next attempt, you can connect with me. Let's begin with the fourth 5-year plan itself. This fourth 5-year plan, the disclaimer here would be, as I said earlier also, that you must make notes. Running notes are the most pertinent part of this lecture series. If you are not making notes, you are doing a mistake. Now remember, fourth 5-year plan, it started from 1969 to 1974. Earlier to this, we saw multiple rolling plans. We saw that there was a plan holiday also. In the upcoming plans, we will also see that due to external factors, due to I would say agricultural crisis, due to economic crisis, due to BOP crisis, due to forex reserves or exhaustion of forex, we will see that Indian economy, as we are tracing the timeline or the history of Indian economy, or we are seeing that how Indian economy evolved over the period of time, we will see that how the 5-year plans are changing the course through political or socio-economic externalities to economy. Now let's understand this. Very simple. Fourth 5-year plan, the main objective was two things. First was growth and another was stability. Why stability? Because you might be remembering that 1962 was the turbulent time for Indian economy, whereby we earlier discussed that rupee got devalued in 1966. We had 60% of devaluation of the rupee. In the earlier plans also 66 to 69, we had a plan holiday for 3 years. 3 annual plans were launched. Why so? Because we had multiple crises at hand. We had Green Revolution, annual plans, we had the agricultural shock, we had shock in food, I would say supply. We had to introduce Green Revolution. Also, along with this, we had conflicts with China and Pakistan. That is why we launched this fourth 5-year plan with a new vision that we will have growth and stability both in the economy. Whether due to external sectors, we will create shock absorbers for external sectors, and for the internal sectors, we will develop reliance or self-reliance, or we will develop I would say Atmanirbharta, or which we currently call Atmanirbhar Bharat, or we will develop we will see that how India per se can be self-dependent, understood, or self-reliant. So first of all, we started with emphasis on underprivileged and weaker sections. We started with bank nationalization, already asked by UPSC. The chronology of events of bank nationalization, abolition of privy purses, and Green Revolution. This was asked back then. I guess it is a question before 2016. It is a question which was asked in prelims before 2016. I have a faded memory about this question, but I do remember that this question was asked. In chronological order, you need to arrange bank nationalization, privy purse abolition, and Green Revolution. So for you in the comment sections, do mention the dates, that in which year were these reforms brought in. First was bank nationalization. What do we mean by nationalization of anything? That is when government owns or takes the ownership of any particular thing. For example, I will tell you what is nationalization. Very simple. If I have this remote with me and this remote belongs to me because I purchased it. Now, if this remote is purchased by government, it is purchased by government and is used for, there is a hypothetical example, for a large screen on which public is watching cricket match every day. and that is installed by government, that electricity to it is provided by government, that TV or this remote has ownership of government, it means it has been nationalized, it is now a national asset. Similarly, banks, some of the banks were nationalized at this point of time because we had crisis in banking sector. Privy purse abolition, the payments which were promised to princely states and the princes of princely states were abolished. Green revolution was introduced, in which we brought in and tried to increase agricultural productivity by introducing high yielding variety seeds. Now remember that, first you need to remember these things. Abolition of privy purses, this will be studied in detail in polity. Bank nationalization will be studied in detail in Indian economy chapter only, but when we start banking. What all the banks were nationalized, how they were nationalized. Green revolution will be studied in detail once we start the chapter of agriculture. Understood? So there is no need to panic about that. Why are we not going in detail into these? Oil shock was there because all the oil exporting countries, they decided that we will increase the prices. There is a cartel of OPEC nations, oil and petroleum exporting countries, OPEC nations or OPEC plus, you should search about it, you should read about it. They decided to increase the prices, and that is why there was oil shock, and this brought in inflation in the domestic economy. Again, there was an Indo-Pakistan conflict in this time because 1971 we had the East Pakistan crisis, that is Bangladesh. And due to this liberation of Bangladesh and India's, I would say, involvement into this, establishing democracy in Bangladesh, this led to, I would say, a problem, a pertinent problem or a persistent problem which currently is being faced. This is even faced today. The influx of migrants and the treatment to migrants, the NRC, CAA and the, I would say, the SIR in Bihar or any other things, the reforms or demographic reforms which are being brought are basically linked to this event also. One thing is that. So the fourth five-year plan, as per the government documents, had a target of achieving a growth rate of 5.7%, but it actually achieved 3.3% growth. Now this means that we performed less than what was targeted. However, in this war, in this time period, we had Indo-Pakistan conflict, and the twin objectives were first growth with stability and progressive achievement of self-reliance. So first and second, two goals were there in the fourth five-year plan. One more thing which you need to remember is, hereby we started to emphasize more on agriculture, growth rate of agriculture. Why? Because this will lead to what? This will lead to the growth or domino effect in other sectors also. Once agriculture gets developed, other sectors will also start developing, because agriculture, in the past videos also we discussed that there are backward linkages and forward linkages in agriculture. If they are established well enough, this agriculture can help to develop the overall economy. This we will be reading further, don't worry. So the first 2 years of this plan saw a record production increased, but the last 3 years, first 2 years, 69, 70, 71 and then 71, there was less production, poor monsoon. Implementation of family planning program was introduced in this plan. Bangladeshi refugees came into India after 1971 war. However, this plan is considered a big failure. Clear? If there is any doubt, you can ask in the comment section. Now, one more thing which we need to remember is, in the fifth five-year plan, we had growth and social justice as the two main objectives. But hereby, Indian economy was facing with a problem of high population rate, a problem of unplanned families, or a problem of family planning, because there were too many people, too many mouths to feed. So that is why our government started to understand the problem, to develop or start measures to control the population. improvise. See, three things have to be done over here. First was to control birth rate, and second was to control death rate. Two things. Third was to introduce or to understand or to help this population, whatever is remaining in this, whatever the population we have, whatever the demography we have, they must be fed with nutritious diets. There must be enough food. And the most important thing, there should be no poverty. Why so? Because if this population, whatever is remaining, if we have less population, see, understand a simple thought. A person who belongs to, or a poor person or a poor farmer or a poor father, he thinks that if I have 4 sons, it means I have 4 arms to earn. I have 10 sons, I have 20 arms to get the earnings into my house. That is why more population means more earnings. More household members means more earnings, because it was all labor intensive program, I would say economy, or labor driven economy. Further, there was one more thought, that if I had 10 sons or 10 children, not I per se, but any of the people or any of the, I would say, father living back then, if he has 10 sons or 10 daughters or 10 children, maybe 5 of it may survive, because there was high infant mortality rate, high child mortality rate, and this will lead to what? Survival, difficulty of survival. Thereby, government has to introduce programs for multiple things. First was healthcare, second was nutrition, third was survivability, and fourth was poverty. That is why you will see from this program onwards, government will introduce measures to help this population become better and better, because we are controlling the birth, we are controlling the death rates. Understood? We are decreasing the death rates, we are decreasing the birth rates. That is how we can have a stable population. Once we have a stable population, our fertility rate, or I would say total fertility rate, anyone in the comment section, please tell me what is the current total fertility rate of India. Is it 2% or I would say 2 or 2.1? Not percent, it is either 2 or 2.1. Now, I know the answer, either it is 2 or 2.1, but I want you to answer this question. One more thing which you need to remember is, the main focus is on equitable development during the turbulent political period. So, in this political period, first was that national emergency was declared on the grounds of internal disturbance in 1975 to 77. Now, these were the two periods, 2 years of Indian history, which are termed as the dark history or the dark period of Indian democracy, because in this time there was just a minor internal disturbance. A protest started from Bihar or the Gujarat, and it was led by students. This protest saw the emergence of some of the leaders like Jayaprakash Narayan ji, and these leaders led the student movement, and this movement shaked the government, which otherwise had a monopoly in political power. You might be remembering this thing, or you might have read this in polity, that from independence till 1960-67, we had a single party dominance. And due to that, we had only one party, and it was said by multiple people, or the people from colonial era, or I would say multiple governor generals. They said that India is Congress and Congress is India, or India is Indira and Indira is India. These were some of the cliche terms which were used for Indian politics per se. Now, we do not need to go into politics. So, thereby moving ahead, in 1977, Janata Party came into power and introduced the 6th 5-year plan. However, you need to pause it over there. We are still on the 5th 5-year plan. Let's complete it, then we will go to 6th 5-year plan. The new government removed the Janata plan and launched the official 6th plan. So it was in 1977 to 1988. Understood? There was a gap of 3 years, and after 3 years, 1980, another sixth 5-year plan will be there. 1979 to 80, there was a gap of 1 year in which there was a plan holiday and no 5-year plan was, I would say, implemented in this time period, 79 to 80. Now, be clear with this thought or this chronology. Let's revise. Fifth 5-year plan, target was 4.4%. Actually, we achieved 4.8% growth. The final draft was prepared by D.P. Dhar. The Dhar Commission, you must remember about the Dhar Commission, and it was prepared only in the backdrop of economic crisis. Economic crisis, why was there economic crisis? Because there was hike in oil prices. As you remember, do you remember there was oil shock, there was hike in oil prices during fourth 5-year plan. Now, due to this hike, there was an economic crisis, and in order to settle this economic crisis, which was created due to runaway inflation. Now, in the types of inflation, there is a type of runaway inflation, hyperinflation, galloping inflation, creeping inflation. We will read all of them. Headline inflation, core inflation, we will read all of them in inflation chapter. So, there was runaway inflation, that is, inflation was out of control. It proposed to achieve two main objectives. One was removal of poverty, that is Garibi Hatao, as we discussed over here, the removal of poverty. Second, there was Atmanirbharta, or attainment of self-reliance. As I said over here, that India has to decrease its dependence on the external or the other countries. Further, we need to understand. Further, we had promotion of high rate of growth, better distribution of income, and significant growth in the domestic rate of savings. It means Indian economy started to save more. Now, what does this mean? How do we save more? By better financial inclusion. If we are saving more, now remember, why am I discussing this? Because UPSC PYQs, means one entire question was on this only. That India has a paradox, or there is a savings investment paradox, or diamond paradox we call it, saving investment diamond paradox. That is, despite the high savings, because Indian economy has this feature that in Indian economy we have high savings. Everyone tries to save. The first thing you learn from your family is, once you grow into the adolescent age, being a woman or being a child or being a girl or being a male child or a female child, whatever you are, or any other child you are, either any of the genders you have, 10, 20 genders are there, whatever gender you have, remember that, because I don't want to go into that gender debate, remember that everyone is told by their parents that start saving something. This is the common term which every household has, which every parent talks to or talks out this to his children. Now, why do you need to save? Because we are in such a country which is still in the swinging state between the underdevelopment or least development to development, or we are in the I would say emerging world. Now, in this emerging world we have insecurities, social insecurities. In these emerging worlds we have less social security. We do not have too much of I would say pension, healthcare, insurance provided by government. So thereby we should understand that we need to save. And this was the point where India's domestic rate of savings increased. But the problem is that, do you remember the circular flow of income which we read in the past chapters, which we read in the past videos? That circular flow of income talks about that financial institutions take the money from the circular flow, from the basic model, and this money is a leakage. And then this money is invested back into the firms, and that is injection. That is, first the leakage happens through savings and injections happen through loans. Now, this is the problem, that how are we converting the savings into investment? If that is good, if the velocity of money is good, if the I would say the velocity is higher, or if I would say that if the monetary policy transmission is better, If the money is changing hands, if there is high investment culture in the economy, then only higher savings will help. Otherwise, higher savings are a burden on the banking sector. Understood? Because even if you create loans, those loans will convert into NPAs, and that is what happened to our private sector, to our banking sector. We had a huge NPAs till 2015, and then RBI came up with reforms. We will read about that also. Due to high inflation, cost calculations for the plan proved to be completely wrong, and the original public sector outlay had to be increased. A public sector, the outlay, that is whatever the government planned to invest in the public sector, this was increased or revised upwards. After the promulgation of emergency in 1975, the emphasis was shifted to the implementation of Prime Minister's 20-point program. Now remember this, Prime Minister's 20-point program was introduced. When was it introduced? It was introduced post the implementation of emergency in 1975. Clear? One more thing, 5-year plans FYP was relegated to the background, and when Janata government came into power in 1978, plan was terminated. That is what happened to the 5th 5-year plan. It was terminated in 1980s. Clear? Now, that is how 5th 5-year plan from 1974 to 79 worked. Clear? Now, let's move to rolling plan concept, because earlier also we discussed that earlier in 1966 we had 3 rolling plans, or we had a plan holiday. First time rolling plan was introduced by Defense Ministry in 1962, only Defense Ministry, because at this time China attacked us. Due to this Chinese attack, it was recommended by Professor Grunal Mridal. Now, he is the one who wrote the book, The Asian Drama. Or he is the person who says that 21st century belongs to Asia, and particularly India. Clear? Now, Janata government considered it in 1971 that we should also introduce rolling plans. Main feature of rolling plan is that it is annually introduced. It is introduced for 1 year. Multi-year goals are set but not rigidly followed. However, the 1-year targets are rigidly followed, are to somehow extent followed and achieved. Targets are reset according to the changing circumstances. That is why it is said as, it is called as rolling plan. Why is it called rolling plan? Because it rolls over. It, I would say, traverses, or whenever it travels through different pathways, it actually changes its course of action or course of the movement. One more thing, what are the advantages of this 1 year or the rolling plan? First, it is flexible and particularly very much helpful in such economic situations where we have the uncertainties, like the COVID-19 plan, or the COVID-19 year was such year in which we had to think about the short-term impacts. It overcomes the rigidity of the fixed 5-year plans, because it is flexible in nature. It is for 1 year only. It can be changed after 1 year. It resets targets as per the changing conditions. Disadvantages are there. That is, there is weak commitment to achieve the targets. Usually the targets are less achieved. Potential economic instability is there from frequent revisions, because if you are changing the rolling plans again and again, it means that your economic stability will be at stake. You might be less stable economy wise. Now, moving to the next rolling plan concept. 1978 to 1980, in the 2 years we had 2 rolling plans, or we had 2 sixth plans. Do you remember? 2 sixth plans we discussed over here. 77 Janata government introduced the 6th 5-year plan, and 1980s when Janata government was removed, the new government removed this Janata plan and introduced official 6th 5-year plan. So we had 2 6th 5-year plans. Remember this point. Clear? So then Janata government put forward a plan for 1978 to 83, emphasized on the employment in contrast to Nehru model. Clear? Which the government criticized for concentration of power, widening of inequality, growing or mounting poverty. They said that due to this Nehruvian model, we had inequality, poverty or unemployment. That is why we need to focus on what? employment rather than this, I would say, reduction of poverty. However, the government lasted for only 2 years. That was the time period of Janata government. And then back again in 1980, the Congress government again came into power and started the vision of poverty eradication or decreasing the poverty or removing the poverty. Garibi Hatao program was again back into picture from 1980 onwards. Clear? Sixth five-year plan was introduced from 1980 to 1985, which was the official plan introduced by Congress government. That is what we are reading. The first major aim of this plan was poverty eradication. This poverty eradication through what? Through direct attack was foremost purpose. Infrastructure was strengthened for industry and agricultural development. Major programs which were launched was first, integrated rural development program, training of rural youth for self-employment, development of women and child, National Rural Employment Program, Rural Landless Employment Guarantee Program. Growth which was achieved was around 5.7%. It was more than the target which was set by sixth five-year plan. The target was 5.2% and the growth was 5.7%. And that is why, or not because of this figure, but because of the overall achievements of this plan, it is termed as a success plan or a successful plan. Do you remember the first, second and now the sixth five-year plan? It is clearly mentioned that they were one of the successful plans. Clear? Now, do you remember that just 4 or 10 or 15 minutes before we had a discussion on how government will start introducing different types of developmental plans, welfare plans to make its demography resilient, to make its economy better, to introduce social justice. That was the goal of fifth five-year plan. And now remember that this thing will be followed in sixth five-year plan also. Post rolling plans in the sixth five-year plan, we had the objectives. The objectives of development, social justice. That is why we will introduce rural development, youth self-employment, women and childhood or women and children development, employment guarantee. Understood? Clear? In this year, 1981, India took a loan from IMF. Again, earlier also we, I would say, generated a loan from World Bank for developmental aid, and this time we are taking a loan from IMF in 1981. Clear yahan tak? Chalo. Next, seventh five-year plan, 1985 to 1990. This series was promised that it will be entirely in English, and for the Hindi medium students, I will be doing this series in Hindi also, but after some point of time. Now, seventh five-year plan, 1985 to 1999 or 1990, it stressed the rapid growth in food grains, because seventh five-year plan in 1985 to 1990, we had again the shortage of forex reserves. We had a BOP crisis, and due to that, there was a problem. There was a problem because India had to now focus on food grain production. India had to focus on employment opportunities. India achieved a growth of 5.81%, which exceeded the target. The target was 5% and we had a growth rate of 6%, not 6 point, achieved a growth rate of 6%. Now remember, this is the official document of the Government of India. That is why we will take numbers from this only. The facts have to be always verified from the government documents. This is the only rule in UPSC. All the facts must be verified from government documents. If not, you are doing it wrong. Clear? Now, remember, we achieved a growth, or I would say a growth rate, which was better than what was the target. In this seventh five-year plan, we started to liberalize our economy. But remember, the reforms of LPG came officially in 1991. Liberalization, privatization and globalization. We will read about them also in the next lecture, or in this lecture only, in the next, I would say, eighth five-year plan. Liberalization began. Plan saw the beginning of economic liberalization with consensus building for reforms. We started to think about that we should liberalize our economy. We should not totally control our economy. State should not have too much business to do business in the state. We should not control everything. We should not own everything. Rather, we should help the private sector to flourish more. because state, when it comes to the role of state, it may provide us with basic necessities, it may provide the economy with, I would say that all of the people in India might be having social welfare, might be having good education, health, but the problem is that how growth can be achieved. Why was this mentality set in place? Because in the GDP lecture also, I discussed this, that the discussion at international level, see, I'll tell you the story. Do you remember that in the past lecture, we had a discussion about that how macroeconomics emerged. So there was a thought post World War II that do we need to grow at a stable rate of 2% or 3%, or do we need to achieve a consistently higher growth rate? That is, if last year we were growing at 2%, this year we should grow at 3%. Next year 4%, फिर 5%, 8%, 10%, 12%. Now why is this needed? Or is this the sole reason for destruction of the entire planet? That is what usually I talk about at different platforms, that this mentality of economics, the Hindu growth rate was the best growth rate for sustainability. Hindu growth rate was the best growth rate for economic survival, for donut economy, for entire planet's good health. Till this time, we were not over-exploiting. We were not destroying Aravalis, we were not destroying Hyderabad jungles, we were not destroying the Chhattisgarh jungles, we were not destroying the tiger corridors, elephant corridors, we were not doing that kind of development. We were majorly focused on the social justice part of demography. But hereby, the economic growth of India was termed as Hindu growth rate. Why? Because we had a trap. We were, I would say that, trapped into something that we were not able to break the shell of 5% growth rate. Our economy was not going beyond 5% growth rate. Because till this time, if you were with me, we never had a growth rate of more than 6%. So that is why we thought that for the longer term, in order to achieve 9%, 10% growth rate, because it is currently being said that if India wants to become a developed nation by 2047, it must have at least 7.3% of growth rate with at least 30% of investment rate for the next 22 years, then it will achieve this. Understood? Because this was recently which I discussed in the wrap up of entire 2025 economy. I'll be you will find that link or you will find that video in multiple channels which usually are there, in which I work or in which I post multiple things. You seriously want to get connected, do get connected, and I do discuss multiple things across YouTube or across different social media platforms, and due to that, or I would say that from all of that, usually you will get that understanding of how to approach the national, international issues better. Done? So thereby, long-term fiscal policy in 1968 was set that first we need fiscal stability. We do not need to overly depend on loans and external aid or external loans. We need to simplify our tax system to increase the taxation or tax revenue to help Indian economy have tax buoyancy. To enhance resource allocation efficiently, to shift from the ad hoc yearly policies to the 5-year long-term policies. Not only 5-year long-term policy, but we should have a roadmap of 100 years, of 20 years, 50 years, 70 years. That is where we should think now, not only about rolling plans of 1 year or 2 years. So that is why at this point of time, for the first 3 years, there was an export-import policy which was introduced and which was announced, and it replaced the annual export-import policies. So in the external sector, we thought about this, that we should liberalize the economy for longer term. Now that was 7th 5-year plan, in which our main focus was on food, work and productivity, 3 things. This plan was very successful as the economy recorded 6% growth rate against the targeted 5%. with the decade of 80s struggling out of the Hindu growth rate, which was 5%. So in the 6th 5-year plan, we broke out, or not 6th but 7th 5-year plan, we broke out of the shell of Hindu growth rate from 5% to more than 5%, that is into the 6% arena. Done? Now, from 1990 to 1992, there was a crisis year. 1990 to 1992, we had crisis years and we introduced again the plan holidays. In the 8th 5-year plan, which was not able to be started in 1990s due to economic crisis, external uncertainties and political instability, we introduced 2 5-year plans. One was for 90-91, 91-92. Clear? And in 1991, there was the first major turning point for Indian economy, in which the socialistic pattern of Indian society or Indian economy changed to liberalized, privatized and globalized economy. Understood? So from the next lecture, we will start from 1991 to current, that how our economy evolved, or how or why did we introduce all of these reforms, what are the major outcomes of these reforms, what are the results from these reforms, how much have we achieved. And the bonus for this lecture would be that at the end, I will again share with you the entire discussion which I had earlier. We will be having that discussion again, that the wrap up of entire 2025, that how Indian economy progressed in 25 year, the entire 25 year, and how it developed or how it increased or set targets for its 2026. What it needs to done, how should we understand economy in the present scenario. That will be the bonus part for all of those who are watching these lectures consistently, who are showing their love to these lectures, or who are actually giving me feedback about these lectures. Done with that? Sure. With this, let's conclude today's discussion, and tomorrow we will start with 8th 5-year plan from 92 to 97. Clear? Sure. All the best. Thank you. Jai Hind.